When we talk coffee machines, there is one distinct part on an espresso machine that I believe is the biggest hero that we always seem to forget about. It causes a lot of problems, but creates so much opportunity in creating a much better espresso quality product. And what is it? Well, it's the humble seal, the good old seal that connects your coffee machine to your group handle. It makes sure that the water travels from your machine straight evenly onto your coffee puck, and then gets that equalized pressure that you're applying to that coffee bed so that it extracts perfectly. Now, we get asked all the time, what's the right seal for my machine? Well, stick with me and I'm gonna help you understand why a seal is not a seal, and a gasket's not a gasket, and a shower screen isn't just a shower screen. Every machine's different, so let's go on a journey to work out what is the right seal for you and how you can go about making sure that your coffee machine works perfectly every time. So here we go, we've got a group seal. Now we call them group seals, you might call them an O-ring or an O-ring gasket or a rubber group seal gasket or a couple of different names out there. But essentially this is the key component that binds the top of your coffee basket, which is sitting in your group handle, to your coffee machine, so when the water comes in on top of the coffee bed, it creates a perfect seal. Now, if you don't have a perfect seal, the water is going to go outside the seal, come over your group handle, and allow it to drip into the drip tray or possibly your cup. And because you don't have the right pressure being applied to your coffee bed, you're going to get a very poor extraction. Now, it's very easy to say that you just need to go and buy a seal from your local coffee shop or tech or order one online. Well, that isn't the easy answer because there's so many other factors that we have to look at as a coffee tech of many years in how we can get you the right seal. So I'm going to run through a few of these things that you can look at before you even consider, is it actually the seal's issue? Perhaps your group handle's an issue. What could be possibly wrong with your coffee machine? So as your machine ages, there's certainly different size seals that you're going to need. Now in front of me here, I just have a little range just to give you a quick little introduction and breakdown as to some of the things you've got to consider. The first thing is to work out whether your seal is actually attached with your shower screen. So this is what is typically used in any E61 head, so something like a Rocket or a Wager commercial machine, or a lot of the other machines that have that brew lever that you see from all the Italian style machines. Now the gasket that fits this is very specific. On the inside here you can see there's a little beveled edge. On the shower screen there is actually a little chamfer edge or an external edge. These two marry up perfectly inside each other, like so, and then you push that up into your group head, and the compression of the outside of the group head and the inner basket will hold that in place. So that is the one type of a group seal and shower screen combination that you've got to consider. Now, if you look up into your group head and you see that there's a screw, you have a very different type of group seal. This is just a La Marzocco. This is their beautiful line embossed shower screens, which is really nice. And you can see that there's a hole in the middle. So there is a dispersion screw that goes through the middle and screws that up into your group head. So essentially, the group seal sits up in the machine and the shower screen is independent of that. Now, many other machines do have another brass block that sits in the middle, and the brass block might be the internal diameter of your seal, and then you've got your shower screen that sits into the brass block. So all of these different areas of the machine have different measurements. So when people start to talk about, I have a 54mm portafilter or a 56, 57 or 58, it's not necessarily the size of the group seal that's going to be in your machine. So let's go on a bit of a journey to try and work out the things you've got to think about to make sure that we get the right seal. Here I have a La Marzocco coffee machine with two group handles inserted, and you can see they're in very different positions. And just to quickly outline what you're looking for when you have your group handle inserted into your machine, we want to have it at exactly 6 o'clock. So as we're locking our handle, it should just stop when it hits the group seal, and then it should be spongy enough just to move it a couple of mil more, and that'll compress that seal. Now on the right hand side here, we can see that this one is more like the 7, maybe 8 o'clock, and when you take it out, it doesn't quite fully go in. it's stopping very firm here. Now this means that we have too big a seal in the machine, and essentially when you provide water to your coffee and it starts to expand and you increase the pressure, this handle could pop right out and you'll have an absolute coffee explosion everywhere. Now on the other extreme, when you have a very worn seal, or you've been tugging on that handle way too much, or perhaps it is too small a seal that you've purchased and put in, the handle is going to come all the way around towards 3 o'clock, and then that's going to cause probably not sealing because it is so small. But also, if this handle was to come all the way around to 3 o'clock, they're going to hit each other and you're going to not be able to work on two heads at the same time. Now at this point we think, okay, the seal is going to be the issue in where the position of this handle is going to be. But there are some other factors which I'm going to show you on a whiteboard in a second and explain a little bit more detail. But you could have possibly a worn group handle in either these lugs, your basket, or the actual locking mechanism on your group head, which are going to be another factor to consider to see what seal size you're going to need. So you can see I'm a pretty good artist, and I've got this lovely diagrams on the whiteboard, and I'll just run you through a few of the key things that we want to consider. Now, usually older machines or damaged group handles are going to be the first thing that we start to consider when we want to recommend a seal. And I'll explain why. Every day when you're using your group handle and you go to bash it out onto your knock tube, that rubber is there for a very particular reason. It's to stop damage occurring to the coffee basket that you have in your group handle. If that rubber wears out and you start bashing on the hard plastic or the metal, you're going to cause issues across all of your coffee baskets. And what's going to happen is, you can see up here, this is a normal coffee basket and there's a ridge or a curve on the top of that basket. If you're going to be bashing that onto a hard surface or your knock tube bar without a rubber, you're basically using it like a hammer and you're going to flatten that surface. So you could end up with a very flat part on top of your basket, and essentially that can be a couple of millimeters, and that means you're going to need a very different seal. So we want to make sure that the basket is not damaged, and we're not going to cause future damage by making sure our knock tubes have the rubbers in them. Now moving from a group handle and seeing where the wear of the actual handle and the lugs fit into it. I've done a bit of a cross-section diagram here of a group head and trying to explain to you how we measure all these different things. The first thing to consider is the lugs that are on your group handle. A lot of them were a brass material and maybe they had a chrome plating on them. And every time you use them, that chrome plate comes off and there becomes a bit more wear. Now you might find that one particular handle works really well in your left head and it doesn't work very well in your right head. Well, perhaps consider, is the left-hand head in the machine the one that you always use? Well, if that's the case, because it's right next to the grinder or it's closer to the side you're serving customers, there's always one group head on a machine that's going to get used far more. So you might find that the wear inside the actual group head is more and it's going to have a very different seal. Now, why is that the case? Well, because every handle has a slot that it has to lock into, and you can see I've got those channels here allocated. And as you lock it in and turn it to the right, the actual coffee basket is going to sit straight up against the group seal here pictured in red. So if these are wearing out or your lugs are wearing out, the gap between the two is going to be bigger, and the only way we can fix it is by putting a larger seal to make sure that the basket actually is pushed down a little bit more and the lugs are all pushed down so that when we go around we don't end up all the way to the far right. The opposite of that is if we put too big a seal in, you're not even going to be able to lock it in and you're going to be on the far left. And again, having more play in between these lug channels and the lugs on your actual group handle is going to cause more opportunity for it to slip and possibly pop out of your group handle. What I'm trying to show down here with the green drawings is the two different types of shower screens. So this is the one that has the O-ring which is attached to it, and the bottom one is the one that would have the screw through the middle. So the positioning of how this actually sits into your group head is going to be very different, and again that is going to determine what group seal that we're going to use. So it is very important to understand what seal, what machine, before you start to talk about even the size of the O-ring that you're going to need. So you're thinking, okay, what kind of seal do I need? Like, is it going to be what size, internal, external, all of those things you have to consider. But where your actual handle stops is going to tell you what you're going to need. So if you're on the left at 7 or 8 o'clock, you're basically got too big a seal. If we're going to be perfectly at 6 o'clock, it's the perfect place that you need for that seal to be. And if we're heading over to the right, which is going to be that 4 to 5 o'clock sort of point, you've actually got a too small a seal. So if you pull a seal out of a machine, it might not necessarily mean the size seal that you want to put back in, because you might have already had it sealing and it's really compressed and really hard and been in there a long time, which has no give left in the seal. And then you're going to go and ask for the same size again, and you're going to end up all the way to the right. So it is a little bit of a test, really, to be able to work out the exact seal. So we would have all heard about group heads and sizes and basket sizes, basically. There's a whole range between, say, 53, 54 millimeters, which might be like Breville's or smaller single boiler coffee machines. Then we get into 58, which is a commercial size, like a Lumberzocco or Wager or perhaps a San Remo. And then there's some odd ones which might be 57 millimeters. So there are another whole range of numbers, but these are certainly the most common ones. So generally this diameter is actually the internal diameter of this, not the external diameter. So when we start to look at seal measurement sizes, they have an outer size, an inner size, and then they have a depth. So trying to find your manufacturer's recommendations on what the outer and the inner is definitely going to help you get the right seal. And then you've got to determine how thick that needs to be. So some of the ranges that we're going to be looking at is somewhere between a 7 or up to a 9 millimeter. And you'll see they either go in 1 mil or 0.5 mil variations in there, so that we can basically make sure that we end up in the exact position given the wear that your machine has. Now, if you didn't have the right seal, you can buy a little paper shim, which is about 0.5 of a millimeter, or I think you can get the 1 millimeters as well, which actually will sit on top of your basket. I was going to grab one of them, sorry. So perhaps you go and buy yourself a group seal, and let's say you bought a 7 mil, and you put it in and your handle ends up all the way to the right, and you think, damn, why did I buy that one? It's the wrong one. You can buy a little paper gasket or perhaps a paper shim like this, which will sit on top of your group seal as you pop it up into the machine. You don't want it to be on the bottom because your group handle will wear that out very quickly. But essentially that will just be lowering down the group seal and allowing it to connect to the top of your coffee basket a bit easier and quicker. So if you're unsure, maybe try and buy a shim and that'll help you work to it. And then next time you'll know that you need to add that shim height to the height of the current group seal that you got, and that'll get you out of trouble. So one of the most common questions we get asked here in our shop is, can you please get me the group seal that suits my machine? Well, we don't always have that answer, and this is the reason why. We don't know how old your machine is, how well worn the group handle is, the basket is, or the head is. And so many times someone comes in for roughly about an $8 part, they make multiple trips to come and see us because they get the wrong one. They're afraid to rip the old one out to then not have the right seal. Well, I know we have a lot of seals here in place to be able to help most of our customers out. If you're ordering online, look, it's a bit of a stab in the dark to try and get the exact height. So my recommendation to you is maybe buy 3. Go and buy yourself a 7, 8, and maybe a 9 mil seal, and then when you get them delivered, yes, you're gonna maybe pay 2 times the price for a couple of seals, but you'll have the solution there ready for you. The last thing you want to do is on a Saturday morning rip out the old seal and not have the right one, and you won't get that for another couple of days, and you're going to miss out on a coffee. So for a small expenditure, you're going to have the range of seals that could get you out of trouble, but also if you're coming and seeing a shop like us, you're not coming back multiple times. My recommendation is actually to book your machine in for a service. We will put the right seal in here, we'll test this, we'll tell you whether you've got wear in your group head. We'll look at your coffee basket and perhaps see if you've got wear happening there, or is it the lugs as well. So we can advise you on how to look after your machine in the future. You'll get a clean on the machine, perhaps a descale, a group head clean, maybe a new shower screen, which is going to make your coffee taste a lot better. And we'll have that solved for you very quick and easy. And maybe find a preventative issue, in the back end of your machine that you didn't know about. So it is worth taking it to a service agent to get these things looked at regularly. In a commercial environment, these kind of black seals can last 3 months or they can last 12 months. Now it depends on a couple of factors. How many kilos of coffee a week that you're doing and how hard your baristas are pulling on those handles. So if you're noticing people starting to really pull hard on handles, it's because the seal's either worn or that's what they were told to do. So perhaps teach them to be a little bit more gentler on those handles and you're going to get a lot more life out of your group seals. Now there's a whole range of different things, different sizes and materials out there now. Silicone is a good product now that everyone seems to be looking at. They're definitely a lot more spongy. They tend to last a little bit longer, but if you treat them hard and you're really jamming them on, they don't last as well. So if you're gentle, take them out, clean them, they are quite good. You can see here, this is from a Lelite machine. It's a 57 mil, so they look very similar, but when you put them together, there's only 1 mil difference there. So they're definitely not going to fit in width, in diameter there, but also you can see that the height is very different. So perhaps do a bit of research around the Lelites to see if that's going to be the right one for you. Commercially, we use a lot of these black ones because we have a whole range of them. And we can start to really narrow down the height of them when we're there on site. You'll notice that a La Marzocco one is very different. It has a big bevel in it, and some other manufacturers do this as well. I think the Nuovo Simonellis run with that style as well. So that basically helps seal on the inside of the coffee basket up here as it goes in, rather than just the flat surface. So if you do have a bit of basket wear, that's the kind of seal that you're going to need. And seals have an up or a down way when they go into your machine. So have a look on the guide and see perhaps which side has to go up. Generally the markings go up and any curvature goes down to sit inside the coffee basket. Hopefully that helps you understand some of the different things you've got to look at when you get a seal. Now the labeling on a seal doesn't necessarily mean the size of it. A common seal that we use here is this Wager one. It works with all of the E61 style machines, so Wager and San Remo's or your Rockets, Quick Mills machines that are out there. And the coating on it is a 12227. Now you might think that that is a 7 mil seal. It's not. It's actually an 8 mil seal. There's a 12228, which isn't an 8 mil seal. It's an 8.5. So there is some crazy numbering that could be on seals that you just want to be careful with. So don't think that the code is the specific height measurement. So double check before you purchase your seal. So there you go. I hope that's given you an insight to the humble group seal or O-ring, whatever you want to call it, that is in your espresso machine. It is an integral part for you to make great coffee. If you're not getting that seal between the water and your group handle and the basket that you have in place to be able to provide the even water and the pressure on top of your coffee bed, you're going to end up with a terrible extraction. So if you're getting that leak on the outside of your group handle and the dirty water's dripping into your cup before your espresso actually comes out your spouts, the group seal is going to be the culprit. So hopefully that helps you understand where to look, what to look for. If you've got any questions around that, pop it down below. I will find it hard to answer that until you can tell me all of this data about how old your machine is, whether you've got damaged baskets, and so on. So perhaps consider those things before you start to buy them. Get a couple of the seals. They're cheap as chips. Good to have hanging around for that rainy day when your machine decides to leak. As a point of when should you start to replace them? Well, every time you're going to do a descale on your machine. So if you're doing an annual descale, you definitely want to change your seal in a domestic environment. Commercially, for basically if you're doing say 10 kilos a week, you're probably going to get away with 6 to 9 months out of a commercial seal. But when you start to do 20, 30 or 50, 60 kilos a week, you could be changing these every 3 months or even monthly. So change them earlier and you're not going to have an issue. If you leave them too long, they'll actually turn out like a hard carbonized rock in your machine, and good luck trying to get that out. So have fun chiseling away up inside a group head to get one out because you didn't change it for 5 years in your home machine. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Questions down below. Appreciate you. Thanks very much. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.